AITA for kicking my husband out of the hospital after he refused to drive me and my daughter there. I have a 14-year-old daughter. Her bio dad passed away when she was 4 and her uncle was her father figure for the next 6 years of her life. Then he unfortunately got sick with cancer and passed away shortly. She has been having abandonment issues and trust issues and wouldn't easily open up about her feelings unless to those who are close to her. When she met my husband, she didn't immediately warm up to him. She said she doesn't see him as a father figure but has been spoiled and kind towards him. My husband kept trying to get close to her and do all he could to get to know her more and get her to open up to him. It affected her mental health because she felt like he was forcing a relationship, and I already told him to give her space and time and she'll come around on her own terms. He didn't stop trying and saw it like it was a challenge of some sort, which caused so many issues between us two. About 3 months ago, I found out that he snooped on her therapy and I had a huge fight with him about it and told him he wasn't her dad and he had no right to force it on her. He apologized profoundly but said from that moment on he'd no longer try to be her father because he is not and will never be. His own words. I noticed he has stopped doing anything for her, like bringing gifts and playing video games with her. I wanted to ask, but he said no one is entitled to a gift or his free time. Last week she fell off the stairs and hurt her ankle. I freaked out because it was painful and she was in a lot of pain. I called my husband and told him to come take her to the hospital. His response was that since he is not her dad, then he didn't have to do anything for her, then hung up on me knowing I can't drive for medical reasons and I can't afford an ambulance. I called my mill and she came and took us to the hospital. She must have gave my husband grief about refusing to help because he showed up to the hospital looking worried and acting like he cared. I yelled at him and demanded that he leave because he had no right to come and act worried after he ignored my daughter and me when in dire need for help. He argued back, then began crying, swearing on his mother that my daughter is the light of his life and that he refused to help because he was upset with us. He begged that at him stay, burr. I insisted that he leave. His mom didn't say anything at first but then told me that her son didn't mean to ignore us and that he really loves my daughter. I told her this attitude isn't acceptable. Imagine if I needed him for something more serious and he decided to ignore us because he felt hurt. I went to stay with my friend and brought my daughter. He tried sending flowers and a new electronic devices but all got returned. He's all over me, texting and calling telling me to let it go and that I punished him enough by kicking him out of the hospital. NTA. If he genuinely cared for her, nothing would have stopped him from taking her to the hospital when she was hurt. That's a parent being childish and having a strop because a child who has suffered major losses already didn't trust him on his schedule. In his way, for his gratification equals not a parent. He only cried and pretended to care about her when his actions were exposed to his mother. He's fake. You can't trust him to care for your child on a basic level of bodily injury, never mind her emotional and mental well-being. Plus the sneaking into her therapy. He's crossed so many lines. His mom didn't say anything at first but then told me that her son didn't mean to ignore us. Who cares? He did ignore you when there was a medical emergency. And it wasn't an accident or an oversight. It was a conscious decision. So he puts sulking ahead of your daughter's health. Your daughter, who he claims is the light of his life. His crying sounds like crocodile tears. NTA. Obviously. To hell with him. He is useless. Some of these responses are troubling to me. Up stated that she told her husband that he wasn't her child's dad after he snooped on her child's therapy. What kind of monster snoops on another person's therapy? That's a huge violation of privacy. This extreme overcorrection behavior was designed to punish you. I bet he thought this would make you miss his intrusive behavior. NTA. NTA, but you mean your ex-husband, right? Why would you marry a man before he had a good relationship with your daughter? Cut your losses and learn from your mistake, because this is not it. NTA, he neglected her in a medical emergency so he could be stroppy and sulk. NTA. There are marinara flags all over the place. Snooping on therapy, forcing a relationship, not responding to an emergency. For your daughter's sake, it's time for this marriage to end. He's a toxic influence on her life. Just hold off on dating again until she's 18 and can leave the house. YTA for exposing your daughter to this man. YTA if you don't leave him immediately after this. Continuing this marriage will harm your daughter and your relationship with her. Choose wisely. NTA bot, seriously, how did you end up marrying a guy your child didn't take to? I couldn't imagine being with someone my kid couldn't connect with. It would be a huge red flag, and now his childish behavior has proven her instincts right. From that moment on, he'd no longer try to be her father, because he is not and will never be. His own words. He said no one is entitled to a gift or his free time. His response was that since he is not her dad, then he didn't have to do anything for her, then hung up on me knowing I can't drive for medical reasons. I can't afford an ambulance. His mom didn't say anything at first, but then told me that her son didn't mean to ignore us. But he did mean to ignore you. He was punishing your daughter for not giving him the love he felt entitled to, and punishing you for not trying to force her to make a bond with him. He's angry because your daughter, who is younger and more vulnerable and has made her boundaries clear, isn't doing what he wants her to do on his terms and not letting him trample over her boundaries. He's angry because you refuse to be an enabler to this kind of unhealthy behavior. Had this been a more life-threatening situation, he absolutely would have left you both for death in this instance. The only reason he's sending gifts, love bombing, and apologizing now isn't because he's actually sorry for hurting you both. He's just sorry that he got caught being a bully and ratted himself out to mommy. NTA. And you need to seriously consider this a make or break moment in your marriage. Not just for your sake, but for your daughter's. Imagine if it were something more serious. Read this every night for a week. Then ask yourself, who is the asshole? Swearing on his mother that my daughter is the light of his life and that he refused to help. Because I think we're pretty much done here. NTA. NTA. Marriage probably doomed, for the record. If my wife called me and said our daughter had a friend over, one I'd never met, and she broke her ankle and needed a ride to hospital, I'd be there immediately. And I bet most people in the sub would do the same. A child does not have to be your daughter to deserve mercy. Your husband was being extremely vindictive. NTA. A child was hurt and needed to go to the hospital. He should have saved his squabbles about whatever might have been said or felt or whatever for later and gotten her to a doctor. This whole thing should have been nipped in the bud in the way beginning and not escalate to this point. Ops ta for that emo BC. Her daughter's mental health got worse as a result of her boyfriend's pushing. And she still kept going with the relationship and didn't stop him. She asked him many times and has had issues with him about boundaries so many times, but he still refuses to change, and Op is going along with it at the expense of her daughter. Pretty sure the saying is something about stop beating a dead horse? Affected mental health and therapy, snooping and refusal to drive her to the hospital? He's tough for all this, and it's clear that some serious steps have to be taken, and this violation of trust is going to be hard to come back from. Everything is transactional with him. He wanted to feel like a dad, but didn't care that your daughter had already lost her father and father figure, was entering puberty, and was reluctant to let another into that role. When she wouldn't meet his need, he pulled back completely, to the point I'd consider hostile and cruel. Even without her injury, you don't pull back love and kindness from a child you live with. He wouldn't even muster an ounce of decency in an emergency. What? Now that he realizes none of his needs will be met, he pulls out all the stops. Everything he does is to meet his own needs. Divorce and don't look back. I think this is an obvious NTA. His true colors? I understand he may be hurt, but he is acting like a petty teenager. NTA, he did mean to ignore you. He hung up on purpose and for a reason. That wasn't an accident. So yes, he did mean it. NTA, I feel like he was trying to force a relationship so bad he literally passed the perfect opportunity to prove himself. Being a parent when things are good is easy. The true test of being a parent are when things aren't easy. When they hurt your feelings. Sometimes to your very core. Maybe even destroy your things. Even plain out saying they hate you. But you still put on your parent hat and stay up all night with them when they're sick. A biological parent earns rapport through being there their whole lives. New people need to put in the time. And he was impatient. He made it clear he's here for the good times. Not the parent times. Not the times where it's important. When it came to her time of need, he abandoned her, and probably set her back decades. He failed her. Don't you fail her, too. She's had enough. NTA. He's acting like a child, all his way or nothing.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.